Check. 1, 2, 3. Hello, everybody. Hello. I apologize. I've been having some technical issues today, but I'm back, such as I am. Very hectic morning, plagued by a bunch of technical issues. I'm trying to get my camera to display properly, so just bear with me for 1 second. Okay, maybe. Okay, perfect. Awesome. Right, I believe we're on. I don't think this is the correct stream, but I'll do this anyway. Hello, one person is here. Out CL34N says hello. Hello, out C34 CL34N. I'm glad somebody can see this. Okay, after all the technical issues, let's start. I had tried something that I don't normally do, and that was that I named this particular stream. And I wanted to focus on a specific topic. And it's not actually displayed here, so I can't see the exact words that I even named it, but I believe it was, what's holding you back? What's preventing you from starting? And that's what I think we should talk about today. I know that's what's on a lot of people's minds, because a lot of people would like to do their own thing that generates cash, that generates money. It supplements their income. It could even be a path to being completely independent and not having to get a regular job as an employee. A very liberating thing. Speaking as someone who's been in that world for like 100% for over 10 years, or just around about 10 years, I could say, yes, it's a wonderful thing. But maybe that's putting the cart before the horse. Maybe you're just looking to do a side hustle. Just something part-time, a few hours a week, just on the side. Doesn't affect your day job, doesn't really have too much of an effect on your life, but brings in a little extra income every month, right? Maybe that's you. And I know there's a lot of people that want to do this, and a lot of people that are taking steps to do it, and it's a wonderful thing. And there's even more people out there that want to do it. They would love to do this, but they don't know how to start, or they're up against what we talked about last episode, which was like a psychological barrier. You're up against just a fear, or you can't take that step. So that's what I wanted to explore today, and I wanted you guys to get into the chat. Hopefully you can see the chat. It's right next to my face. You can see the chat box. Get in there and tell me what's preventing you from starting. What's the biggest issue that you're dealing with when it comes to not being able to take that first step? Is it knowledge? Is it fear? Is it psychology? Is it something else? Let me know. In the chat, let's see, we have Motion S says hello. Hello, Motion. Dunamis, is that how you say that? Dunamis says peace. Peace, my brother. Out CL34N says, I'm at work, but I decided to check you out. Well, thank you. This is a wonderful occasion for you to do that, out CL34N, because I managed to completely bungle the live stream today. My workstation here at my desk was not set up correctly, so I had to try and put everything back in a mad dash. Always good, just so that you're just a little bit out of your comfort zone, but that's okay, because this is how things go and we swing with it. For people that have had a corporate career, you've had to do presentations, you've had to chair meetings, things like this. You know what I'm talking about. Things rarely go according to plan, or they don't always go according to plan, and when there are developments, we just roll with it. That's all we can do. I bet you can't pronounce my name. Okay, I'm going to give it my best shot. Here we go. Let's see. Balaz. Did I get it right? I need more of an accent, more of a continental kind of accent. I was going a bit more Western there, but I can go continental. Balaz. How about that? It's better than some names that are just unpronounceable. Like, how do you pronounce that? That's what I want to know. But I'm just going to call you B. You're awesome. And it's good to inject a little bit of humor in this. So thank you for being here. Welcome. Hopefully we're here to learn together. What are you guys wanting to know when it comes to how to get started? Is it knowledge? Is it confidence? Is it something else? Let me know. EW says knowledge. Mosin says money. Let me answer Mosin first because it's a very, very short answer. Okay, Mosin, you may have been given the impression by others that in order to do a side hustle or any kind of independent business venture, you need to invest money. Okay, you might have got that impression. The reality is that it is a false impression. You do not need any cash to start up your own business. Okay, you don't. Now, obviously, if you pick a business idea that requires what we call a large capital outlay, which is like you've got to spend money on stuff to even get started in the beginning. Yes. And in the past, I've used examples like if you want to start an airline. Okay, you have a business idea. I'm going to do an airline on the side. Or I'm going to do an oil and gas refining business on the side. Well, obviously, in order to get into that business, yes, you would need a lot of money. However, there are many, many options that you can choose that do not require any real kind of capital outlay to get started. Okay? And usually those take the form of something you can do with a desk, a phone, and a computer. Okay? Sometimes you don't even need the phone. So within that limitation, there are an entire universe of different ideas you could do, depending on what your situation is, what your talents are, what your preferences are. Okay? That do not require any money to get started. And what I mean by that is that you can start have revenue coming in before you have to spend a cent. Okay? So it's about picking the right idea, Mosin. Don't pick something that needs a lot of cash to get started. There are many, many advantages to this. Not just the fact that it's cheaper. There are many, many other business advantages to it. For example, the most obvious being that you can try an idea, and if it doesn't work, you can try another idea. No harm done. No harm, no foul, right? You haven't really spent anything. Certainly, you haven't spent huge quantities of cash to try the idea. So you can do another one if that one doesn't immediately pay off. Okay? There are many advantages to this. I actively encourage people to try things that don't spend a lot of money. In fact, something I have railed against for years that I find reprehensible is there's a lot of financial service entities like lenders, banks, that deliberately get into the world of entrepreneurship. They try and put their message out there to encourage would-be entrepreneurs to get into this game. And they do it, obviously, out of self-interest. They want to sell you a loan. And so they convince you that, the only way to start a business is to get a loan and spend vast quantities of money up front, right? It's a lie. Just between us, it's a lie. It's a self-serving and reprehensible thing that they do. Because if you go out and spend a ton of money in your first attempt, chances like trying to get a hole in one in golf when you've never played golf before. And chances are you will not achieve that. You might achieve partial success, but you certainly won't get a hole in one. It's extremely unlikely that you will do it. But the idea is that if you're playing with those kind of stakes, if you don't get the hole in one, then you lose a ton of cash. It's a terrible idea. Okay, so Mosin, money is not a reason to not try. You don't need any money to do this. Okay, you just got to go about it properly. And if you want an example, look at what we're talking over, YouTube. How many YouTubers are there that make a full-time income? I'm not saying that you need to do that, but I'm saying that's a prime example. How much money does it cost to start a YouTube channel? Nothing. Right? Okay, if you have a smartphone, assuming you have a smartphone and an internet connection, you can be a YouTuber and you don't have to pay anything to get in that game. I'm not necessarily recommending that. I'm just saying it's there. Now, EW says knowledge. Yes, knowledge. Now, the fact that you know this EW is a good thing. A lot of people don't realize how much they don't know, and they jump in with both feet, and then they make, especially if they're spending a lot of money to get started, they lose it all, right? They learn the hard way. So the fact that you know you need knowledge, that's a good thing. Now, obviously, this is a prime spot to plug my own course that solves this problem. But I mean, look, whether you get my course or you do it some other way, that's fine. Okay. But yes, learning business is the way to be good at business. If you don't know anything about business, you don't know how it works. The odds are stacked against you more. If you know some basic principles of business and how things work, obviously you have an advantage. Okay. So that's good. Yes, everybody can see on the side of the screen, I've got a course, the $100 MBA. If I created it for people in this situation. If you want to learn business, you don't want to spend a lot of money, but you want to get the same value, check it out. I walk you through every area of a legitimate Master's of Business Administration degree. And you get all the books and you can read them on your own time. You know, there's no evaluations, blah, blah. It's something you can fit into your life. That's why I created that. So check that out if that's something that you want to do that seems interesting for you. It is definitely a solution for some people. It may not work for others depending on what your goals are. Okay? But check it out. I walk you through all that stuff. Anyway. So Dragon says, I took that first step and then failed. I guess I have a problem with client acquisition. A dragon, you are absolutely typical. Okay, that's usually how it goes. If you don't come from a sales background, or you're some kind of extreme extrovert / social butterfly, okay, this is where most people first encounter that challenge. It's the number one challenge of business. Okay, if you are more of a technical person, if you are more of an introvert, chances are is that the operations side is not a problem for you. Like delivering something of value is not a problem. You already have abilities, you already have capabilities. You can create something or you can provide a service. That's not the challenge for you. What the challenge is going to be getting strangers that you don't know to pay you money for you to provide that thing, right? That's going to be the big challenge. Okay? It is the number one hurdle in this entire process. Okay? And the good news is that if you can crack that nut, if you can overcome that challenge, then prosperity awaits, because it's just a matter of figuring how best to do it and what's the most efficient way of doing it and how to scale it up. Like those are relatively simple challenges compared with that huge first challenge, which is getting your first few customers. Okay. So you are not alone. And the good thing about what you're saying here is that you've come right up against that challenge. Now, why am I saying this? I'm saying this because most entrepreneurs that I work for in the sort of startup environment, they go another way. They start out by getting those loans that I mentioned, spending lots of money, multi-thousands of dollars, and they spend it on window dressing, on things that don't matter. They get a website, they get an office, they get a logo, they get business cards, they go to events, they put together pitch decks, they, make plans, they try and sort of network with would-be investors and like all this stuff. None of that matters. Because even though they've got all this stuff going, they're not in business. It is the illusion of being in business, okay? Because they haven't actually sold anything yet. They haven't actually provided anything and got a complete stranger to see the value in it and believe that it's worth their money. And so they part with it, right? They haven't come up against that challenge yet. They're living in a dream world. At least you've come up against it and you've seen the problem you have to solve, okay? Dragan says, now trying in a different way. Yes, and that's the key. And that's the key. You try different things. Now, the more you know about business, the more educated your guesses will be. Okay? Okay, but that's what it's about. And we can talk about the details. If people have specific questions, we can try and get into those. Now, my good buddy B says, I learned how to be successful with interviewing. I got a great job 6 months ago. Just want to say thanks. Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much, B. I'm glad that's working out. CL34N says, do you think a professional or corporate certification and targeted knowledge towards a certain area of your interest is better than a university degree? Well, I mean, that's unanswerable. What university degree and what area? It's obviously going to vary. The answer, as much as I can give you one, is that yes, sometimes, right? If you're talking, there are some university degrees that are extremely valuable. And if they fit with somebody's personal goals and, you know, what they tend to enjoy, what activities they tend to enjoy, that's even better. There are other university degrees that are absolutely useless. And even more so if they, you know, it trains you in something that you don't really enjoy and you don't want to do for the rest of your life. So, I mean, you know, it takes all kinds. What I will say, though, what I can say is this, okay? And this is going to sound like it's self-serving because I'm selling a course that tells you how to do business. But it's really not self-serving. Forget about my course. Just listen to this principle. If you want to be in business, okay, it helps knowing business. Yes, you can stumble upon a successful formula. Okay, it's not rocket science. You can stumble upon a successful formula and start to make money with it, and that's great. However, if you don't understand the business principles of how things work, okay, being able to repeat that on demand is going to be very hard. And the problem is it gives people the illusion of success. I've heard all kinds of things on the internet about how, you know, oh, an MBA is not necessary. It doesn't teach you anything. It's like, incorrect. It's like saying, if I want to do plumbing, do I need to learn plumbing? Well, of course you do. I mean, if you want to do it properly, right? If I want to be an actor, do I need to go to drama school? Yes. Yes, you do. There are some people that are just so massively talented that they have managed to stumble upon success without having gone to drama school, without having learned how to be an actor. Okay? But all things being equal, the chances of being even more successful or sustaining it will go up if you actually have been trained as an actor. You know? So that's the same idea. Okay? The thing is, if you strike gold once, you don't know, and you can't prove whether that was through skill or through luck. It might have been some combination of both, but how much, it's impossible for you to say. A lot of people get an ego and they think, oh, well, it was all skill, when in fact it was just luck. They were in the right place at the right time, they happened to have the right thing, and bam, it clicked. They attribute it to their skill. Anyway, I'm getting a little bit off topic here. Okay. But that's a great question out, CL34N. Great question. If you would like to fill in the specifics of what you're trying to do, what certificate you have in mind, and comparing it to what university degree, I'd be happy to help you with that. Gerard Vincent says, I have 4 interviews today. Wow, congratulations, Gerard. That's pretty impressive. 2 panel interviews, 1 executive level for the same company. Then another interview for another company. Wish me luck. These are the final interviews. Okay, well, good luck, Gerard. EW says, I'll check it out. Thanks for the response. Okay, no problem. Dragon says, wow, amazing. How you read me from just short sentence. Well, good. That bodes well. Motion, or I thought it was motion, but it's actually HS, Mosin, says, thanks for your insight. I will let you know how it will go. Okay, yes, good. So yes, coming back to the theme of today's episode, what's preventing you from starting? Let me know your stories, because there's a lot of people that would like to be in this business of having a side hustle, business of being in business for yourself. It's a feeling of, in a way, if you're an employee, this is how I look at it. This is my personal opinion based on my life. The way I look at it is that if you're an employee, it's like being a dependent. You are dependent on your employer for your livelihood. And they have power over you. And they control your destiny. And it's not a good feeling. And it's very limiting. because then there's all kinds of psychological games at play. An employer, they have the incentive to make you feel that you have no other real options, that you should stay right where you are, you should be happy to be where you are, and you should be compliant. You should do everything that we say, and then whatever we decide to pay you, you should feel that that is more than fair for what you do. Okay? And that's what we see. And we do see a lot of employers taking advantage of this and exploiting people. I see a lot of individuals who were never taught the reality of the business world when they were younger. They feel that their job is an entitlement. I'm entitled to a job. I don't have to like my employer. I don't have to be compliant. I don't have to have good feelings towards them. But yet they are obliged to give me a job, give me whatever pay I demand, things like this. People, in my experience, based on what I've observed my entire career, generally speaking, people that have those attitudes don't really go that far because it's not accurate. And one of the things you can do is one of the things that's going on right now is that there's never been a better time to bypass your employer. You don't actually need an employer. If you have value, you can contribute to society. You can create wealth by being able to produce some kind of product or being able to provide some kind of service. You don't need someone to be an intermediary between you and the people you benefit, namely your employer. Okay? You don't need to go through an employer to turn your value, your talents into money. You can do it directly. And a lot of people are doing this. The wonderful modern technology we have, things like YouTube, things like the internet, what we used to call the internet 2.0, where you can put stuff out there and reach a lot of people. Absolutely unheard of 30 years ago. And allows a lot of people to do what was impossible in the past. You can get your message out to millions of people. It is possible. If you have an internet connection or you have a smartphone with an internet connection, you can get your message out to millions of people. It's just a matter of the knowledge, having the knowledge, how to do it, how to use your phone to get your message out to a million people. Absolutely incredible. So you can bypass an employer altogether. You don't have to worry about getting fired. You don't have to worry about getting laid off. You don't have to worry about sudden changes, restructurings, things like this, office politics. You don't have to worry about any of that. That's not necessary. It's not essential. Some people don't mind that stuff. They can swing with it, and that's great. Other people really have a problem with it. And the great thing is that there is an alternative. You can go direct. You don't need to be dependent on an employer. And certainly in some cases, it feels like slavery. It feels like corporate slavery. So Mosin says, thanks for your insight. I'll let you know how it go. Regina Johnson says, good morning. Would you happen to have any thoughts about starting a virtual assistant business as opposed to working for a virtual assistant agency that connects you to their customers? I have never actually used a virtual assistant. The company that I ran, we were never that big for me to have an executive assistant. And I never had a virtual assistant too. That sort of stuff sort of came in afterwards. So I'm not really down with the ins and outs specifically of doing that. However, if you work in that business and you've been on the inside of it and you see how they provide their product or service, I guess it's more of a service in this case, how they provide their service, and you might be on the sales side or the marketing side, like how they interact with their potential customers and how they go about the sales process. So if you've seen that, that would be hugely helpful to inform you how to go into that business yourself. What I do know is in the HR world, there are a lot of independent HR companies out there, and they do things for businesses. You can sort of hire them to do recruitment and selection for you and various other things for you. But the thing about that business, because it's purely service-based and it's done mostly on the internet, the problem is that let's say you have a successful HR business. You do recruitment and selection. You have, say, 5 people that work for you. One of the big issues with that is that it's so easy for one of your employees to leave, having learned what to do at your company. They leave and then they just start up their own HR company, doing exactly what they did before, just as their own entity, right? That's a real problem for these companies because it's so easy to start. What do you need to do to be an HR company? You need to have a desk, a computer, and a smartphone. That's it. So anyone can do it. So I would say if you're still working as an employee in this virtual assistant business, learn all you can. Try and see the pieces of the puzzle that maybe your job doesn't normally allow you to see. Try and peel back the curtain, peel back the layers. Pull back the curtain and peel back the layers and find out what they're doing and use that as your template. Okay, that'll get you started. The best thing to do in that situation is hopefully you're in a situation where you can interact with the customers. If you can connect with the customers, that's kind of the key. Find out how they do business, what they look for, what's important to them. Okay. And then some of the norms. How much do people pay for what service? What's the selling point? Things like that. All that obviously is going to be very important. So as much of that as you could possibly find out, the better. And then beyond that, it's about replicating it. Okay. So hopefully that would be a good starting point. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions for that. Because it's a very intelligent question. Out, CL34N. I want to be a penetration tester and wonder about professional certifications that are globally recognized and teach you through a ton of patience and focused information. What's a penetration tester? Is that like some kind of geology or like mining or something like that? I'm just curious. Let me know more specifically what that is. And I can maybe respond more. Daniel Chen says, "Hi, Bill. I'm a new graduate student. Should I prepare all well, then send my CV to company, or should I send my CV?" This isn't really an employment live stream there, Daniel Chen. We talk about that on Wednesdays. This is more of side hustles, hopefully. Sorry for the confusion. I had some technical issues this morning, so I don't know what this stream is labeled as, but it's supposed to be side hustle ideas. Andre Diaz says, "Hey, I have a question. I do have a freelancing job, a website to develop and deploy due 15th of April. This came in a good moment since I got a layoff 2 months ago. Okay. Still, I have zero will to work on this project. Why? I know it's important. I know I'll learn something working on it. Still, zero willingness." That could stem from several things, Andre. That could be, listen, I'm not a psychologist, but what I do know is that a lot of things that we have to do that we don't like to do, a lot of interactions that go bad, it's almost like they stay in our subconscious for a little while. And if you have enough of those, you find yourself feeling like disinterested, distracted, having a lack of inspiration, a lack of initiative, and we don't understand a lot of times why. And it's really because several smaller things have been building up in the last day or two, something like that. Or it could be just there could be a negative relationship between you and your employer, or you and your school, or like your freelancing job, maybe a person within that. And you feel that they have power over you. They feel like they're getting the better of you. Something like that. That can have a psychological effect. It can have a subconscious effect. And it leads us to behave in ways we don't understand. All of a sudden, we're disinterested in something that we should be doing, that we should be excited about. All of a sudden, we find that we're procrastinating when, that's never been an issue before, working towards a certain thing. That's something that I've seen. I've seen it in myself. I've seen it in others. So possibly that might be what. Oh God, I'm not a good speaker. What might be going on with you in this situation? I'm not sure. I don't know if that strikes a chord with you, if that's maybe what's going on. There are a lot of things in life where we tell ourselves with our head, consciously, I should be doing this. This is a good thing for me. This is the right thing to do. It's the logical thing to do. But yet, our emotions, our feelings, they say, no, yeah, I know it's the right thing to do, and I know this is the logical thing to do, but I just don't feel like doing it. And it's that kind of conflict that takes a little while for us to figure out. Usually the answer is, if you think back, there's something going on, some overarching issue that's affecting you in ways you don't know what it's not immediately obvious. And then also the other thing is that sometimes inspiration comes and goes. Okay. This is why they have to pay you to work in a job, because no matter what you do, even if you get a job essentially doing your hobby, they still have to pay you, because you won't be doing it on your own terms. Every day, 8:30 or whatever it is, you have to be at work doing that thing, whether you feel like it or not. And some days, even if it's like your hobby, after being there for week after week, month after month, year after year, and you have to be there at 8:30 in the morning, and you have to be doing this activity, whether you feel like it or not, sometimes you just don't feel like it. So inspiration does come and go, and sometimes all you have to do is wait a little bit or distract yourself with, some hobby or something in the meantime. And then you find a couple of days later, you develop more of your inspiration comes back. You develop more of a taste for it. So all of those could be factors. It's going to require a little bit of investigation on your part to try and figure out the root cause of what's going on. Sometimes it's temporary, but sometimes it can be a permanent loss of interest. That's what I have to say. As I say, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm just trying to share stuff from my experiences in my career that might fit. Regina says, gotcha. Oh, yeah, okay, about Regina's thing, the virtual assistant thing. Tio Jarson says, hello, mister. Thanks for your videos. Love from Peru. Well, thank you for saying so, Tio. That's very, very kind of you, and I appreciate it. Regina says, I haven't yet, but it sounds like it might be to my benefit to take a job with a virtual temp agency so that I can learn the ins and outs. Yes, this is one of the definite ways to do a side venture in a certain area. The best experience to learn what to do is to be inside of a business that's doing it. The flip side of it is that depending on the situation, usually you get a job on the inside, you don't see the whole picture. You see a piece of it. So if you're not seeing the whole thing, it can give you a distorted view of how it's done. I mean, that's usually a secondary issue. It's still a good thing to be in there. The problem is that they require non-compete contracts. Yeah. Usually non-competes, they usually put a date on it. Okay. And once again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not giving out legal advice, but let me put it this way. A non-compete is only as influential as their ability to enforce it. Don't read anything into this that I'm not saying, but what I am saying is that there are a lot of companies that just put non-competes as a default thing into a lot of their employment contracts. They don't actually enforce any of them. I mean, it's one thing to sort of tell someone, like, look, you're working here under the understanding that you're not turning around and doing the same work on your own, right? In your garage at night independently, right? We don't like that. Okay. So if we were to find out that you were working here as a virtual assistant and then you were going home and then working on your own as a virtual assistant, we would be upset with that. It's a lot harder to then prove it in court that person violated the non-compete agreement. Okay. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm not saying it isn't enforced. I'm just saying bear that in mind. Sometimes they put that, especially with smaller companies, they put a lot of that stuff in, but don't actually enforce it. Okay. And also they put time limits on it. Okay. So I don't think I've ever seen a non-compete that's like it lasts you for the rest of your life. Like there's no date on it. Usually it'll say like 18 months, we expect that while you're working here and up to 18 months after you leave, you will not be working in this space, stuff like that. Sometimes the way they word it, it's very hard to enforce because you can't tell someone that if you're trained for a certain thing, let's say you've got a degree in engineering and you sign on with an employer that makes you sign a non-compete. And they say, if you're working in this area of engineering, you agree that while you're working here, you're not doing this kind of work for anyone else. And up to 18 months after you leave, you won't be doing this kind of work. Okay. Because we don't want you taking the secrets you've learned here and then taking it to another company. Okay. The problem is that you're telling somebody that, the thing that you're trained for, you're not allowed to do for 18 months after you leave. That's very hard to enforce. Okay. And that can violate some labor laws and human rights depending on which country and which region you are in. Okay. So that's something you might want to investigate. Okay. These things usually don't have the teeth that they seem like they do, but obviously I'm not giving you legal advice. Investigate your specific situation. Okay. That's what I would say. Okay. Daniel Chen says, oh, sorry, then I will come back on Wednesday. Not a problem, Daniel. I'm just happy you're here at all. But yes, on Wednesday, I do a sort of open Q&A on everything related to careers, jobs, interviews, resumes, whatever people want. Networking, everything. This is more specifically for the entrepreneurial startup side hustle kind of thing. But don't worry about it. You're awesome. Okay, out. CL34 says, engineer that scans and tests various computer systems for vulnerabilities. Okay, gotcha. Penetration tests. I also study national security. Okay, so IT, so security work. Okay, gotcha. Okay, and you were, why is this frozen? This froze on me. Hell? Oh, here we go. Okay. I have a great rapport with technology, by the way. Technology's never let me down, and I suspect it never will in the future. No matter how old I get, when I'm 95 years old and I can't see and my hands shake terribly and I'm trying to use my keyboard, it'll never, ever let me down. And I'll be down with the latest trends too. Oh, I see. Okay, when I click it freezes because it thinks I'm trying to click on the post. But yeah, certification. So listen, the thing about that, obviously, this, the certifications are moving very quickly. It's a fast moving business. So the certifications might not be able to keep up with what's going on out in the wild. So, experience is, as I understand it, experience in that space is all important, right? And just knowing your stuff rather than being able to point to a list of educational qualifications and certifications you have. But I don't know the specifics of that. I used to be in IT like 15 years ago, something like that. And like everything's changed in 15 years. So I'm no longer an authority on IT. Emric Skeen says, how's your day been so far? It's been hectic so far, as evidenced by the fact that I goofed up this live stream. But other than that, it's fine. It's all good. Hopefully you're doing well this beautiful Monday morning. Regina says, is it Regina or Regina? I think it's Regina, right? The challenge with working for virtual temp agencies, they sometimes require that you don't simultaneously work anyone that gives you a W-2. A W-2, that's an American thing, right? It gives you a W-2, though they have no benefit. So you can't work simultaneously with anyone. Okay. Well, listen. I got to be careful what I say, but if it were me, hypothetically, and I was in that situation, I would learn everything I can at my day job. And then perhaps outside of work hours in the evenings or weekends, whatever, I would try to do some research on how that business works, how you make a value proposition to customers, how you connect with them, how you offer them something of value. That's what I would do. I would do research in that department, an experiment to see if you can get them to do business with you, hypothetically, right? You haven't incorporated a company. You haven't officially started any kind of operation. You've just done random research in the areas of networking and marketing and sales. You're wanting to tack on those skills, right? Now, if it goes somewhere and you have a lot of clients or potential clients throwing money at you, that's a nice problem to have. You can then reassess what you're going to do at that point. That's what I would say. And if absolutely necessary, you can maybe if it really takes off, but maybe in the beginning, you're still not 100% confident in relying on it as an income source. You could get another day job that's not strictly in the area that you're in of being a virtual assistant. And then whichever way it goes, you're covered. And you're allowed to nurture and blossom this idea. And if you have some real talent for it, using all your skills, and it takes off, all the better. That's just my personal opinion on how that stuff would work. Andre says, I'll chew on that. Okay, I'll chew on that. And just to answer your question, penetration testers work finding. Yes. Okay, did I do that one already? But that makes sense. Emmerich Skeen says, what should I wear to a job interview? This is not really a live stream about job interviews. This is about side hustles. On Wednesday, I have a full-blown Q&A on job interviews, careers, resumes, what to wear, etc. Actually, I do have a video coming out in the next couple of weeks, hopefully, on what to wear to the job interview. I've never actually done a video on that. So it's all filmed. It's got to be edited and all that. So that doesn't really help you now, but that's coming up. Regina says, thank you so much for the insight. I understand your point to not read too much in the comments, though. I truly appreciate the feedback. Yeah, it's about learning. Life is a learning experience. And if you can use your current job, your occupation now to learn about that business and to learn how it works from beginning to end, namely the biggest challenge, which is how to get people to part with their cash and do business with you, right? To see your value and want to take a plunge and become your client. If you want to do research on that, that's a great thing to learn. Because whichever way things go, if you could just do it yourself, you don't have to worry about people laying people off or anything. It's very empowering. And the reality is that employees generate this much value, right? They pay you about this much of it, right? Some of the rest is sort of justified because of risk and things like this. And they do have to coordinate people and stuff like that. So, okay, fair enough. But sometimes, if you're generating this much value, if you go into business on your own, you could maybe be generating this much value. But then you keep this much value. You don't generate this much in a large organization and get that much compensation. So that's the other good thing. And you get to be the master of your own life. You get to decide how much of it you do and on what terms you do it and when you do it. It's a win-win. And if you happen to be a creative person or an ingenious person, you have great ideas, you're a real problem solver, and you have some real skills, you can harness all that to make you more efficient and more effective so you can make even more money and have even more success. It's a great thing. So remember, it's a learning game. Learn all you can from where you are with your employer and then go from there. And no one can beat up on you for experimenting and doing research. That's where I'm going to leave it at. Okay, out CL34N. I like wearing a simple iron business shirt. Yes. Well, it depends where you work. If you work in the foundry, in the steelworks, that might not be the right idea. So obviously it's going to depend. The best thing to do is to go on Google, or I prefer to use Bing for image searches. Go on Bing, do an image search, and look up the company and see if you can find out how they dress. And you just dress like them. So when you walk through the door, they go, oh, they look like they belong here, right? You don't want to dress the opposite to everyone. When you walk through the door, they go, this person doesn't look like a fit. And then you've got to try and change their mind. That's very hard to do. If you walk through the door and you look like you belong there, you look like the candidate, all you have to do is not talk yourself out of a job. So it's a much easier challenge. Anyway, that's for another live stream. I'm going to take the next question or two, and then I have to sign off. But GV Log says, how hard is it really for an international to go to the H-1B song and dance? What's H-1B? Is that an American thing? With the goal of working in the U.S. as long as possible, do you think it could be improved? I think you're asking about like an American, like a U.S.-based immigration thing. I'm not American. I'm not in the United States, so I can't help you with that. Besides, there are some dedicated resources, a lot of dedicated resources to immigration and work visas for various countries. So if you're looking for how to get into the US or something, there's a lot of resources online. It's not really my core competency. So, but look up that stuff. There are some people that can really help you with that. I just want to say, over the last couple of episodes, there's been some issues with the chat where people would ask questions, but it wouldn't show up. And other times, it would show up in my feed that I see. I'm using Streamlabs OBS, so it would show up. It's getting its feed from YouTube. But the weird thing is that when you look at this live stream on YouTube, the comments, for whatever reason, aren't there. So I'm not sure what's going on. I don't know if YouTube has got a bit of a bug or Streamlabs has got a bug or I don't know what, but I've just noticed that the last couple of episodes. Because I'll answer somebody's question because I could see it, but then in the feed, right, and the one that's live on YouTube, it won't show that person's question. So hopefully that's not happening to anyone here. But I see like, okay, in that feed, I've got T. Lewis, I've got Lop Fast. I don't see any of those here in my feed. So I don't know what's going on. Oh, here we go. Okay, it just skipped again, and I got a bunch more. Okay, I'll answer these, and then unfortunately I have to get rolling. Okay, Regina Johnson says, yes, I guess W-2 may be an American thing. Yeah, that's an American thing. That's some American form, I think, isn't it? Regina, I respect that you need to be careful, and I completely understand. Yeah, it's hard for me to it's also hard for me to give out blanket advice for everyone around the world when it comes to very specific things. I try to when I can, but when we get into real specifics, like laws and things. Emmerich says, I look forward to watching the video. Yes, hopefully I'll get that out soon. GV Log says, any tips? Well, that was the American thing. Yeah, sorry, no tips. You're asking me about how to get into a different country than the one I'm in. I'm not the person to comment on that, unfortunately. Ouch, CL34N says, the craft beer business seems booming these years. What do you think on starting a hobby about brewing with a beer kit that would produce these bottles and see if people like it? I know nothing about brewing beer. I know it's kind of like a sort of niche hobby / industry. I know some people like to brew their own beer at home. So it is possible to do on a small scale, as I'm given to understand. I don't know anything about it specifically. My first thought when you suggest that were like, ooh, capital outlay. In order to get into that business, you would have to spend money. You'd have to spend cash on presumably the equipment to brew your own beer, assuming, of course, you have the knowledge to brew your own beer. And then my next question would be like, okay, the obvious question for customers why would they buy your beer when there are commercially available beers available that are probably cheap and they, I don't know, taste really good. So you're up against that. So you'd have to have good answers to those, right? Maybe it's like a cottage industry. Maybe there's like a little niche industry. Some people like to go outside of name brand stuff to go and try the independent stuff. And there's some value there. I don't know, but I would check all of that out because those are some pretty obvious questions. Remember, just because you can produce something doesn't mean that you can sell it, okay? Now, normally this wouldn't be too much of an issue if you're just investigating some random idea. But in your case, it looks like you're going to have to be shelling out cash to buy your way into that business, to be able to brew your own beer in the first place. So, I would definitely investigate it. Look for people that are in a similar situation to you, people who have started by themselves getting into this business and made a success of it. If you can't interact with those people, that might be a red flag. So try and find those people, try and meet them. I don't know if there's events that people go to where they all get together and talk brewing. But if there are, go to those, try to find real life examples of people that have done it and try and kind of see what they've done. Use them as a template and see if A, that's the kind of thing you want to do, and B, that's the kind of thing that, you would be able to do. That's how I would approach it if it were me. T. Lewis says, I see a lot of side hustles for fulfillment services, buying products from China and selling it here. Yes, I have got to tell you, I've got a full disclosure right up front. I am biased against companies like that type of activity, because I don't feel it adds much value. I feel its value derives from deception and cheaping out on things like packaging and shipping, and like where quality is not really a focus. It's just, I'm going to do something cheaper than maybe the more mainstream solutions. And I'm not a fan of that. That usually isn't set up for long-term success. You might be able to get business, but being able to keep it is more of a challenge, because it violates that business principle. The business principle says that the companies or the business ventures that tend to be successful, and they tend to be successful long-term, are ones that focus on quality. So I get the impression that a lot of startups in that space, they're not focusing on quality. It's all about cutting costs, and trying to work that margin between what you charge and what your costs are, by providing the same service that other people do, except that you're cheaping out on stuff. So I'm a bit biased against it, so I'm not maybe the best person to ask for the details, but yeah, a lot of people are doing it. Now, if you're offering products from China that are not otherwise available in the markets that you're selling them to, okay, you're providing some value there. You're making them available, okay? But usually you can't compete on price. Usually startups don't work by competing on price, because all things being equal, you do not have economies of scale. You will never be able to compete on price with the larger players. So instead, the way to make something work is you focus on quality, you focus on differentiation, or you have a focus strategy where you serve a very specific customer that no one else is really trying to serve specifically. Okay, so because of that, I'm a little biased against that type of business, but it's going to vary depending on what you're doing and what the details are. Whatever you do, you should try and provide a good experience, okay? Because if you don't, even if you succeed in fooling a few people and, taking their money, and, you do provide something, but they're not happy with it, you don't tend to succeed in the long term. There's a lot of hidden costs to that. The most obvious of which in this business would be like returns, warranty claims, complaints against you. And it's just a losing battle playing that game with people. There are much more forthright ways of making money where you can delight people and have them want to do repeat business with you because they like you and they think you're doing a great job, and they go to you for something specifically. There's a lot better ways. So whatever you do in that space, I would try and do it that way, because then it'll actually pay off, and then you can also scale it up later if you want to. Okay, last two questions because I got to go. Lopfast says, recently I created my consulting firm on global management and don't have experience getting clients nor establish service costs. How to start? you've established it, but you don't know how to start. Well, the first thing to do would be to learn how to sell it, right? Anybody can sell advice, right? The problem is that advice is based on trust, okay? In order for them to want to pay for your advice, essentially, they would have to trust that you are an authority in some area. They're not just going to take anyone's advice. They're not going to take a stranger's advice. They take advice of people who know. So if they don't know you and they don't know if you actually know what you purport to know, it's about that trust. Now, how do we get trust? A lot of times it's personal connections. If you've worked with somebody and you know that they're good and you've seen up front and close the value that they provide, that can lead to relationships where someone would hire you as an advisor or a consultant, right? But if someone doesn't know you, it's pretty hard to sell them on you, okay? You know what I mean? Especially if it's like advising on something they could do themselves. It's just that you're maintaining that you could help them do it better. I've been in the consulting game for many years. It's tough, especially if you're an independent. I basically did it by working with people that I knew in my sort of previous corporate career. They worked with me in person. They worked with me up front. They had dealings with me. So they know that I know my stuff and they know I'm legitimate. But trying to get people outside of that don't know who I am, that's pretty tough. That's a tall order. You could end up doing lower level stuff like teaching and, advising and things like this. You can maybe get into it that way. And then do public speaking and do, publicize yourself, write articles, write posts and publicize those. And maybe try and become an authority that way. Or you could do it the networking way. But you're starting at the bottom and working up in that case. It's still an acceptable way to do it, but it takes a bit longer. You've got to establish that stuff at the beginning. So that's what I would say. So for your immediate problem, I would try and market yourself to people that might have worked with you or already know you. And previous bosses or previous coworkers or, things like this, previous clients, because to them, you're legitimate. To everyone else, you're a stranger. So that's kind of how that works. At least in my experience, anyway. Okay. And final question is Regina. Regina gets the award for the last question. Thank you for your time. Have a great day. That's awesome. Thank you, Regina. Thank you to everyone who's been here. There's 32 people here right now. You guys are all awesome. I wish you all the luck in the world. I do this live stream, hopefully a little bit more professionally. I do this live stream Mondays and Thursdays, where we talk about side hustles and entrepreneurial type things. And come back on Thursday. And if you have questions about specific things, let me know and I'll try and help you to the best of my ability. Thanks, everyone. Best of luck and take care. I will see you on Thursday.